Everyone, it's Penny from Our Crazy Adventures in Autism Land. Today we are going to talk about how to create a sensory diet. What is it? Why do you need one? The difference between a seeker and an avoider, because you need to know that information to do a sensory diet, and how to implement one in your homeschool or just in your home in general. You don't need to be homeschooling to need a sensory diet, but if you are homeschooling, then you definitely need a sensory diet. So let's get started. So, why does your child need a sensory diet, and what is a sensory diet? A sensory diet has nothing to do with food, so we can forget about that. I think about food all the time, so I was really sad to learn that a sensory diet didn't involve food. Sort of like I was really embarrassed to learn that hippotherapy has nothing to do with hippos. But anyway, your child needs a sensory diet because there are children with autism or with any sort of special need, sensory processing disorder, things like that, have certain needs that they need fulfilled in order to learn more effectively. Now, a sensory diet will help them learn effectively. That's why you need one. But it will also help them function more effectively. It'll make them happier. It'll help them attend to tasks better. It'll decrease their impulsivity. All of those things happen because they have a sensory need that they aren't getting fulfilled. They'll quit chewing on their clothes all the time or just randomly screaming at nothing in general. So by fulfilling your child's sensory needs, you make his world better, and that makes your world better. Okay, so let's learn the difference between a sensory seeker and a sensory avoider. We're going to start with the sensory seeker. A sensory seeker is exactly what it sounds like. It's a child who seeks sensory input. He likes to be hugged really hard. He's always moving. There's no stopping the movement. Like if he's sitting in a chair, if he is, then his leg is going, or his feet are flopping back and forth, or he's touching something. He chews on his shirt. He chews on his pencil. He chews on anything he can. A sensory seeker just needs lots and lots of input. They like the swing set. They like monkey bars. They like to run and jump and climb. They have no care as to whether or not it's a risk or not. They really could. They don't look to see if they should do that or if they shouldn't. Their impulsivity is off the charts. They just sort of um, jump and let the cards fall where they may, if for lack of a better example. So, and they touch you all the time. They touch you all the time because they need to be touched all the time. They like to have their hair brushed. They like to, they just need a really lot of input. They love the pool. The pool is a great place for a sensory seeker because they get lots of proprioceptive input in there. They love to jump into the pool. So, you have to be careful there. I have a sensory seeker. He likes to bear hugs. He likes to eat pretzels. He doesn't move and jump and swing as much anymore because he's much older. But he used to touch me all the time. Like there was not a time in my day when he wasn't rubbing my arm or holding my hand or anything like that. In church, actually, when he became old enough to come into the sanctuary with us, I had to put him on the other side of me with my niece, my adult niece, as a buffer because she didn't care if he touched her because she wasn't getting, pawed at all week. So he would sit by her and and rub her arm and all that, and she was okay with it. He still comes to me. He likes his back rubbed. He likes you to walk by and give him like little goosebumps on his arms. So a sensory seeker is really easy to spot because they're the kid that can't sit still or is really loud or is running and jumping and is wrestling and tackling people and all of that other good stuff. So a sensory seeker is easy because they seek sensory input. So, before I tell you ideas to implement for a sensory seeker, I want you to know what a sensory avoider is as well, so that you know both of them. A sensory avoider is like the exact opposite of a seeker. I know it sounds, sort of crazy to say that, but she hates having her hair. She hates being touched. She hates having her hair brushed. She doesn't want you to hug her. She doesn't want you to tickle her. She's not into wrestling or, anything like that. She has her bubble and she stays in it and she doesn't want you in it. Um, as opposed to the seeker who will jump off the cliff without even thinking about the consequences of it. A sensory avoider is very cautious. She wants to watch someone else do it first, or she needs you to go with her to do it rather than do it herself, even though she should be able to do it herself. And she probably can do it herself. It's just she's super cautious, so she always wants reassurance that her bubble is okay and that she is okay. She's probably a picky eater, and this is due to texture issues. It has nothing to do with being a picky eater. She hates the texture of some things. She might hate the texture of the crunchiness of carrots, so she doesn't like carrots even if they're cooked. She may hate soft things, so she doesn't want to eat mashed potatoes. There's no rhyme or reason to the texture issue, but you just have to acknowledge that she's not necessarily a picky eater. She just has texture issues, and you will need to work on that as part of her sensory diet. She's super sensitive to sounds. So remember, our seeker is probably the loudest person in the room. Our avoider is probably the quietest in the room. And here's something that's really important to remember. When your child has these sensory issues, they're not only difficult for them to overcome, but some of them are actually painful for them. So when it's really loud in a room and she's covering her ears and having a meltdown because she can't handle it, it's because it's really painful for her for those sounds to be that loud. Like, actual pain is how it registers in her brain. So it's important to not only recognize your child's sensory issues, but also to put plans in place like a sensory diet so that your child can just function better. She'll remove the tags from her clothes because the tags will drive her crazy. I agree with her there. She wants like certain socks that don't have the thing at the bottom. She wants the seam at the bottom. She wears the same outfit over and over again because that particular fabric feels better for her. She will always have shoes on. Always. She can't, she doesn't like the way like the carpet feels on her bare feet. So always have slippers or things like that for her. So an avoider is sort of the polar opposite of a seeker. She doesn't want to do all of those crazy things that the seeker does. Now, what you have to work on with the avoider though is what we call perfectionism. She will not want to do it unless she can do it correctly and the way she pictures it in her mind. So perfectionism in an avoider is pretty common. So I know you're sitting there and you were like, hey, my kid does those three, but he's over here on the avoider list for these two. And so my kid's neither a seeker nor an avoider. Your child can be an avoider of one sense and a seeker of another. So, for example, I have a child who is really loud, but he hates loud sounds. I know you've seen that meme that goes around that says, why is my child um, who hates loud sounds the loudest person in the room? That's my kid. So, also, you can have a child who um, dislikes having their hair brushed, but doesn't have texture issues and isn't a picky eater. Or you can have a child that chews on everything but takes out the tags in his clothes because he doesn't like it. So you just have to pick and choose. I always say that my child is a seeker because he displays most of the seeker um, tendencies. He does have some avoider tendencies, so I have to recognize that and make that part of his sensory diet. But you certainly can have a child who displays some of the seeker tributes and also displays some of the avoider ones. So you can have like a seeker slash avoider. Okay, so let's talk about some ideas to implement, and we'll start with the sensory seeker. Now, a sensory diet is just ideas you use throughout the day to give your child the input he needs to function. So, if you have a seeker, you're just going to get some of these ideas and you're going to implement them throughout your day. And then that is called his sensory diet. Now, a sensory diet is always evolving. So, as he gets the sensory input he needs, you will see less of the things that brought out, but you may see other things that you didn't notice before. So you always want to evolve through your sensory diet. It's ever changing. So a seeker, for example, likes heavy work. So they like um, they like weighted vests. You can put on, if you go to my blog, ourcrazyadventuresinautismland.com, I show you how we use the fishing vest to make a weighted vest. You could also use those compression shirts. Those are really great for a sensory seeker because it gives them that input all the time. You could also have him wear, this is part of the heavy work, a heavy backpack. So I'm trying to show you things that you can have around the house that you could use. And a heavy backpack is just, you get a backpack, you put some stuff in it. Don't make it like 50 pounds so that you break your 6-year-old's back, but put a couple books and, a stuffed animal and other various items in there. It doesn't have to be anything perfect. And just have them wear it around the house. Or a heavy backpack works for my family when we're going out in public, because if he has his heavy backpack on, it just looks like he's wearing a backpack. People don't know that why he's wearing it, and it gives him that proprioceptive input that he's searching for, which then allows him to attend to many other things going on while we're out, like not running through the parking lot. An indoor trampoline is great. An outdoor trampoline is great. Any trampoline is great for a sensory seeker. I always suggest an indoor trampoline though, because you can, one, it takes up less room. Two, you can use it when it rains. And we used to live in Florida where it rained all the time, so I needed something that we could use even when it was raining. You don't want to send your kid out to the outdoor trampoline when, it's lightning. People frown upon that. Carry a full laundry basket. So have them take the laundry, have them collect the clothes from all the room, and then carry the full basket to the laundry room. That's a great heavy work idea. A therapy swing is perfect for a seeker because a seeker will love to swing. They love the movement, the back and forth movement. So a swing set would be great for that too. Any therapy swing will work. For a seeker though, the taco swing, we call it, where they get in and it's sort of, the fabric sort of folds up around them and then they go back and forth, is perfect because it's giving the swinging sensation plus giving them the proprioceptive input. So you're doing 2 for 1. Joint compressions and brushing are perfect for seekers, but you have to do them correctly. So don't just go out and buy a Willeberger brush and start, just randomly brushing all over your child's body, because you're going to do way more harm than good, and his nervous system's going to flip out. So again, at my blog, you can see I have an article on brushing. You could just put in the search bar brushing and it will come up and it will show you how to do the joint compressions and the brushing. And then you sort of decide how many times a day your child needs it. You could start with 1, move up to 2 if he really likes it. I don't know if I'd go more than 3 to 4 because that's just a lot of brushing and joint compressions, but 1 or 2 a day would probably be perfect for a seeker. Jewelry is my best friend. Jewelry and I go way back. Jewelry is a silicone, usually made out of silicone, shape that your child wears around his neck that looks like a necklace. So it could be, for little kids, they have figures like Batman and a shark's tooth and all that. For older kids, they have different shapes, but the gist of it is that the child wears it around their neck, and then when they get the urge to chew, rather than chew on their clothes or on their pencil or whatever, you have them chew on the necklace. So you will need several jewelry necklaces because they will go fast. I always buy them in like bulks of 5 so that we're always going through them. And so you do that to and then you teach them, because you can't just put a jewelry necklace around their neck and expect them to know what to do with it. So you sort of teach them and reward them when they remember to use the jewelry necklace and not their shirt. Another place is the park. We're not going to be social distancing forever, so I would certainly go to the park when I could. Park has tons of heavy work activities. They have the monkey bars, they have the little spinny carousel thing, they have, climbing and jumping slides. You could even get a slide for your house. We have a sensory bedroom so that he can get his input when he needs it. So you could certainly do that. Um, I wouldn't go to the park. Well, one, he could be loud at the park, so that's why my kid loves it so much. But you also have to worry about the park because a lot of people don't understand sensory seekers and what may seem like a kid out of control, undisciplined. So I don't recommend going to the park with my sensory seeker when there are a lot of people at the park. One of the benefits of homeschooling is that you can go to the park when all the other kids are in school. So that would be a great time to take your child to the park so that they can get their input. So I have this slide in there because this is one of the things we need to talk about. We talked about it earlier about letting your child do their lessons wherever or whatever. A yoga ball, or this particular yoga ball setup, it's made into a chair. So he has the back of the chair to lean on plus the ball to bounce on. We have to also remember that most children with autism have low muscle tone. So you can let him sit on the yoga ball if that's all you have, because he's going to get the input he needs to do his lessons. But also, he's not going to be able to sit up straight in a yoga ball because he can't. His core muscles are probably weak. This is also the part where I tell you we keep lessons short. A seeker cannot attend to lessons for long periods of time. He's not going to sit at the table, yoga ball or not, for 45 minutes to do math. So how about he sits on the yoga ball for 15 minutes after breakfast, you do part of the math, after lunch you do part of the math, and then after dinner you do part of the math. You still get the 45 minutes, but he doesn't have to sit all at one time for 45 minutes. I also school year round because that works better for us. We can take our lessons a little bit slower, which allows us to drill in mastery, but it also allows us not to feel behind because we should be on page 562 and we're only on page 200 because he could only sit at the table for 10-minute stretches and we couldn't get it done. Another idea is to make the lesson short is to just do like maybe every other problem in math. I keep saying math because that's what we have difficulty with at our house. It's our longest subject. So it's hard for your child to just sit, especially a seeker. He needs that input. So you have to figure out how to give him that input while also teaching him and also getting the lessons done. So it's a balancing act for sure, but if you sort of think outside the box, then you can get it done. Let him walk on the treadmill and read. Let him sit upside down and do his reading. Let him jump on the trampoline while you read aloud to him. That may be difficult actually because he's going to be really loud. We have to remember that a seeker is loud. But you could read to him maybe while he's in the bathtub, things like that. So there's lots of things you can do. You just have to remember that you need to keep the lesson short and he needs to get input during that time to be successful. Okay, now that we got our seeker all set up, we also want to talk about ideas for our avoider. So remember, our avoider is the polar opposite of our seeker. So we're going to think like that. I buy several outfits in different colors of the same fabric that he will wear. My avoider will not wear denim. He doesn't like the way it feels. It's not working for him. It took me a long time to figure that out though. I kept buying him jeans. He kept not wearing them. So what I do now is he likes the flannel lined fabric. Some jeans have flannel lined, so I buy those. I get the denim, he gets the flannel. We're good. He also likes the cargo pants, so I just buy several pair. When I find a fabric that works for my avoider, I then buy several outfits so that they're not wearing the same outfit, every day. People look at you crazy. So I also have noise canceling headphones or earplugs in my purse, in the car, in the living room, in the library, in the family room, in his bedroom, in the kitchen, everywhere. You get the idea. So that when the noise level starts ramping up for this particular child, we can go ahead and take care of that. Because remember, as I explained earlier, when the noise is too loud, it registers as pain in his brain. So he starts complaining of a headache. That's the way we avert a meltdown for that particular child. Is we just go ahead and put the noise canceling headphones on, or I let them put their earbuds in, whatever. If they're older, you're out walking around. And it's too loud. I have found that if they have their phone on them, and then you can buy noise canceling earbuds, people just think they're listening to their phone. They don't realize that and sometimes they are, but they don't realize that the teenager just has them on because they're talking really loud. So when they get to the teen age, as they get older actually, you have to sort of not only think outside the box to make them successful, but also they're really cognizant of how they look different. So you want to try to help them meet their sensory needs, but also increase their self-esteem by not having them stand out from a crowd, if that makes sense. I make food she will eat for every meal. Yes, sometimes she gets a different plate than we do. Yes, I can hear the sigh of my mother in the background going, "You are going to make her a picky eater." No, I'm not. She's already a picky eater. So that doesn't matter. I need her to eat. She is not a picky eater because she's being obstinate. She's a picky eater because she doesn't like the texture of the bread, or she doesn't like tomatoes. A tomato will make her throw up. So I make sure there is something on that table that she will eat at every single meal. So that way she still needs to eat and get nutrition, and then we work on the texture issues separately from the table. So I'm just saying, if you have an avoider and she's a picky eater, dinner time is not the time to decide that you're going to work on making her less picky. Okay? Remember that. Keep hair short. Minimize brushing. For boys, you can give them a buzz cut. Perfect. Girls, you can give them a pixie cut. Perfect. Nobody has to have their hair brushed. Problem solved, right? You also, though, have to realize that getting a haircut is a major issue. And if you have a child with autism, you already know this. It's a major issue because of their sensory issues. An avoider hates the part an avoider will hate just sitting there while people touch her and move her hair around and all that. That's a sensory issue for her. A seeker is going to hate it because they have to sit still for long periods of time. So you need to either learn how to cut hair, or you need to find someone who can do it in short spurts, albeit for different reasons, but they still need to be short. So it may take over an hour to get the haircut because you have to take breaks in the middle so that they can regain their composure. If you want a successful haircut, that's the way it's going to work. Does it look weird? Yeah, okay, no big deal. It looks weird. But find someone who's going to cut their hair and is willing to stop and say, you know what? You look like you need a break. Let's walk around. Let's brush all the hair off. You use a little hair dryer to get the hair off and all that good stuff. So don't be afraid to say to the hairdresser, we need to stop. All right? If you have an avoider, try to keep the noise to a minimum at home. I know that's hard when you're home all day, but when my avoider's home, I don't have Alexa playing our playlist. I don't have the TV in various rooms going. We don't have, we just don't have several things going at once. I try to keep all the noise in one section of the house or in one room so that the avoider can leave. With that said, their rooms are always off limits to everybody else except them unless they're invited. Because their bedroom is considered their sanctuary. It's their place to go when it's too much for them and they need to reboot. So, for my avoider, when the noise in the house gets too much because the blender's going and the dishwasher's going and the TV's on and someone's talking, she can always retreat to her room where it's quiet and come back out when she can handle it. We also dim lights in our house. We put in dimmer switches so that we could, when we were working in there, we could have the lights on full blast. When the avoider comes in and has to be in that room for long periods of time, we can dim the lights to maybe half or just dim them down a bit so we can still see. You don't really need the lights full blast, but also it's not overwhelming for her to get the for the lights to be on. And scented sprays and candles, of course, are off limits because her sense of smell is amazing, but it also makes her gag. So if you have an avoider that has a strong sense of smell and things, smells make them gag, you'll know it because when you go in a restaurant with an avoider who has that, they let everybody know it. So you really have to think of that before you go. But don't use Febreze. Don't, have your Yankee candle going. This is the time to get those little, candles that you could turn off and on, the fake ones. And then find sprays if you need one that that you can get and use that don't have an overwhelming scent, or have all the windows open and send your avoider to the room. But you know, if it's too much, she's going to tell you with her gag reflex. I guarantee it. We also ask grandma or anybody else who comes around not to wear perfume for that very reason. Overly perfumed people will trigger that sense. You may have to change spots in movie theaters and in church, any place like that, because people think, some people take a bath in perfume. I don't know what they're thinking, but your avoider is going to let you know. Just always be willing to do what she needs in order to be successful. So my daughter knows that if it's too much, we're just going to move. It's neither here nor there to me. If you can't sit here, then let's move somewhere where you can sit. So always make sure they know that you have their back and that you're willing to make them successful. All right, so with your sensory avoider, you're going to do a couple different things. You're going to need like post-it notes in your purse to cover the sensor on self-flushing toilets because you do not want to be in the stall with your avoider when the toilet flushes itself and she is not ready to leave yet. Whew, yeah, that's experience there. You don't want to do it. So I've taught my girl to go into the bathroom and to put the post-it note on the back of the sensor, so that way um, it will not flush while she's in there. And then she can either snatch it and run out, or I can go in behind her and get it, whichever works at that particular time. If we're at Disney, I go in behind her and get it because she's already overwhelmed with everything going on, so I don't want to ask her to do one more thing. If it was a boy, I would just teach him how to put the sensor on, to post it on the sensor, and come back out. Snatch it and come back out because obviously I can't go into the men's room to get the post-it note. Don't get me wrong, I've gone in the men's room after my son, so I'm not afraid to go into the men's room if needed. But for a post-it note, yeah, people, as you can see the theme through the thing here, people might look at you crazy. So you have to think of things like that. In a homeschool perspective, you would need everybody dressed and ready for the day before you start lessons. That way, you're not at the table or you're not sitting in the living room or wherever you do lessons, because where you do lessons doesn't matter. Just the fact that you're doing lessons matters. You don't want like the hair dryer going and the microwave dinging and someone slurping up their cereal and someone's crunching on their cereal because your avoider is going to get overwhelmed quickly. So you want to put all of those things in place before you try to start the lessons. Now your avoider can probably physically sit there for 45 minutes to get math done, but she gets overwhelmed by outside stimuli really quickly. And if someone touches her bubble or someone touches her or your seeker gets really loud, it's game over. So I still suggest short lessons even for an avoider. It's easier to keep the environment in in a successful place for her in short bursts than it is to try to keep everything from happening in large bursts. So again, short lessons. I'm going to say it over and over and over again because short lessons really work for our sensory kids because a seeker, they're just so impulsive and they can't sit still, and that's why a short lesson will work. An avoider, it's just you got the lights right, the temperature's right, the sound is right, and just keeping all of that right for a long period of time can be tough. So short lessons for sure, for even for an avoider. All right, guys, there you go. That's how you know what a sensory diet is and why you need one. The difference between a seeker and avoider. Here's where you can find me. Just if you have any questions or if you want to know more about brushing or how we set up a sensory bedroom, those things, just message me through one of these channels and I'll be happy to answer it. And thanks for coming to my session.